Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of our podcast, Is Breakfast Included? Today on the show, I talk with Sterling Winfield. Now, Sterling is a Dallas-based audio engineer and producer who a lot of people may know from his work with a little old band called Pantera. We talked about that. We talked about how he got in with Pantera and his current thoughts on the current tour and his involvement in it, if you want to call it involvement. We also talked about how he got into audio engineering and other bands he's worked for, other projects. He talked about that. We talked about Mark Tremonti. Man, it was a great conversation. It was a lot of fun. I'd been trying to get Sterling on the show for quite a while, and our schedules finally matched. On another note, I just want to let everyone know this is our 100th episode. That's right. We have put out 100 episodes of Is Breakfast Included consistently. So if you're new to the show, we'd just like to ask you to subscribe, comment, review the podcast if you like it. You know, if you don't like it, I guess you could say that too, but we prefer for you to leave a good comment. Follow the Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. Share it. It really helps out. You guys have kept us going for 100th episodes. So thank you, Lisa and I both. Thank you very much. All right, guys, let's get back to Sterling. Let's check it out. All right, you ready?
Let's go.
Tell everyone who you are, man.
Hi, I'm Sterling Winfield.
Sterling Winfield. Where you from, man?
I'm from, I've been living in Dallas, Texas for the last 30-something years, but I'm originally from a West Texas town called San Angelo.
Yeah, I know San Angelo pretty well. Were you a musician growing up, or were you always the audio guy? Like, is that something you always aimed to be?
It's kind of one of those weird life-defining moment stories where I wasn't a musician, but my dad was. House was always full of music. Got turned on to rock and roll through my brother's record collection. He's 6 years older than me, my brother Ray. Mm-hmm. And, it was just always kind of a musical house, I guess you could say, in that respect. Then when my parents got divorced when I was about 12 and my dad moved up here to Dallas from San Angelo. And then after I turned 18 and graduated high school, I followed him up here because I wanted to just get out of San Angelo. So the thing being is that I never was a musician. I never really aspired to that. And then I got up here, I was going to college, making good grades and living with my dad. And I just told him I am miserable. School is not my thing. I don't even know what I want to do as far as anything that they teach at a school goes. Yeah. And he asked me, he said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to be in the music industry. I would love something to do there, but I don't want to be a musician because I've always seen how hard you struggle and how hard you've had to get through just to make a dent. And I don't want to be a musician. And he said, well, why don't you be a recording engineer? Because I always see you messing around with your guitar gadgets and your little tape machines and stuff like that. And it had never occurred to me, honestly. I was like, I guess I knew that there were guys that did that, but it never occurred to me to even try it out. And it was like a lightning bolt hit me. So yeah, one of those defining moments.
Yeah. Did you go somewhere? Did you learn there in Dallas at one of the?
Yeah, I learned from a guy who's no longer with us, a local recording guru named Phil York. He did like Willie Nelson's Red-Headed Stranger album. He did the Tender Mercy soundtrack and worked with Robert Duvall on that. So he was like a country guy, rock guy, local. I did like a one-on-one apprenticeship with him, and he got me my first gig doing live sound with a local blues band, and that was it. Rest is kind of history.
Who was that? Is anyone we ever heard of? The blues band?
No, it was a blues band called the Brown Hawk Blues Band, and they had a really badass guitar player named David Brown, and he had actually grown up with Stevie Ray Vaughan, gone to school with him over in Oak Cliff, and he could play almost just like him. Just a killer guitar player, Lakota, full-blooded Lakota Indian dude. And I haven't seen any of those people in 30 years probably. So did that for a couple of years, and then went on to work at Dallas Sound Lab over in Las Colinas.
Okay, so that's where you got your start, Sound Lab.
Yes.
I mean, your
I
actual.
always wanted to be a studio guy. I never wanted to be a live sound guy, but the live thing really helped me hone my chops, about being fast, making decisions, moving at breakneck speed kind of thing. So that really helped me, and learning what acoustics in all these shitty clubs are like.
How did you cross paths with Pantera? You came on board of what was that Far Beyond Driven album?
Yes, sir. I was working at Dallas Sound Lab. I'd already been there about 2 years, maybe almost 3. And they were in Nashville finishing up the recording part of that album. And they were looking to come home and mix it here and do some other last little bits of recording and get vocals and stuff done here instead of in Nashville. So at their dad's place. And so they brought it to Dallas Sound Lab, and me and another guy named Tim Kimsey, who is of King Diamond and Kirk Franklin fame. He was the second engineer, and I was the assistant engineer. I talked to Terry Date on the phone about a week before they came in and told him what kind of gear we had, and told him I was a huge fan of his work. And I like to think that's what swayed him, but I know that's probably not true. But yeah, they came in shortly after that, and we worked on Far Beyond Driven, finishing up recording and mixing for the next 5 months.
And what was that experience like, man?
It was the best. It was a dream come true. I've been listening to Pantera since I was in junior high in San Angelo, buying the cassettes of all of the independent releases.
Yeah. And for a lot of people that don't know, of course, Pantera fans like myself, Far Beyond Driven debuted at #1 on Billboard.
Yes, sir.
It was the first metal album to ever debut at #1.
Yep.
And how did that feel to know that you had worked on that album?
It was insane, dude. I was 24 years old, and I had already worked on a #1 album, and I was like, holy shit. It was, for years and years, and still I look back on all this stuff to this day, and I'm just like, pinch me. I still can't believe I've had the career I've had. It's amazing.
How much did your phone start ringing right after that?
It's funny, dude, how that works. It wasn't as much as you'd think. And the reason for that, and I'm going to be real super candid, honest right here, is because at that point in my life, I'm 24, 25 years old, and they're busy enough to keep me employed full time almost, and because not only was I in the studio with them, but when we weren't in the studio, I was on the road as Rex's bass tech. So it was like a year-round thing: tour, studio, tour, studio, tour, studio. So, the phone didn't ring all that much, and it wasn't something that I actively sought out. I tried to get management over the course of a couple of decades, but it never worked out. I had 3 or 4 people try to do it, and they just sucked at it. And it was like, wow, I can just be doing this myself. And so it wasn't like my phone just started ringing. It really wasn't. And I've always kind of stuck around the local music scene here in Dallas. I've always been blessed with the fact that Dallas-Fort Worth has one of the most diverse music scenes in the world, I think, because there's so many different kinds of musical elements that come together here. And so it's, for me, it wasn't like that, honestly. And to be super candidly honest, I was partying. It was like I had gotten a chance to run away and join the circus. It literally, for me, as being that young and getting to go do that. And so I was out partying with the guys, not paying attention to stuff like that. And they always had something for us to do down in the studio, whether it was a movie soundtrack or something else they were working on. And so it was like, I did a few album projects in between things.
Mm-hmm.
I did work with King Diamond, Merciful Fate for a few projects. But yeah, man, my phone, every now and then something would come in cool, but I always kind of stuck on that side of the fence, man. I stuck close to home. I stuck with Dime and Vinny throughout the years.
And I guess it was hard not to party being in there.
I just let it happen.
Right? I'm not going to fight it.
No, dude, it was great. Like I said, it was like running away and joining the circus. Best time of my life,
Right,
and it worked for a really long time until it didn't, so.
And so you were involved with Reinventing the Steel, Trendkill as well?
Yes. Trendkill, not so much. That was Terry Date's last album with them, and he had his guy, Ulrich Wild, who I still love and talk to, both of them, when I can. But they had that nailed down, and I was just pretty much guitar teching for that album. Mm-hmm. I had a little bit of one-on-one time in the studio with Dime when both Terry and Ulrich had to be out of town. But as for the rest of it was all Terry and Ulrich on that album.
Okay.
But Reinventing the Steel was all me, Dime, Vinny.
And what was that? That was the first album they did it on their own, correct?
Sort of. We did the live album, which consisted of all of those tracks that were recorded in McAllen, Texas. We mixed all of that, and then they wrote 2 new songs top to bottom in the studio, and I engineered and co-produced all of that. And so, yeah, that was first album they did without Terry was 101 Proof.
Okay. And after that, we all know what happened. They went on to form Damage Plan. Were you involved in Damage Plan as well?
Absolutely. Co-produced that one too.
So you were just like, they had like their people.
And most definitely. Their circle was very tight, and it was more about, it had to be this, it was kind of this code, this family vibe, this, hey, yeah, we let outsiders in sometimes, but only on this level. For partying and having a good time. But when it comes down to working and getting a show done and getting an album made, we got our guys. Mm-hmm. And that there was a lot of times that didn't change for, a decade or more, 2 decades.
Yeah. There's a lot of folks, I came up in the Dallas scene. There's a lot of folks that did the party thing with them. And I was fortunate enough to cross paths with Daryl a few times. I would never say that I was a friend, but the one thing about him that I'll always remember is he made you feel like you were the only person in the room.
And that's why to this day, when you see people that are posting on social media and the people that are up in arms about this new tour that's happening with Philip and Rex and Zach and Charlie, when you see some of these people posting, they literally see it as Dime was my bro. He and Vinny were my bros, man. And we went through a lot together. And the truth of the matter is that, honestly, no, you didn't. You thought you were, because Dime and Vinny really made people feel like that. Dime could make you feel like you were the only person in the universe, and he had that light and that brightness about him. And that's why you see so much of that false, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what it is, but man,
that false sense of ownership.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Like an entitlement or some kind of, this. Yeah. It is so weird. And I do not see that with other bands. I do not see that ever. And it's because they were so personable. Dime especially.
It was a trait that very few people if in celebrities or whatever have.
Most definitely. Yeah, they are. They were he was unique in that aspect. Vinny, not so much, but he still had a lot of it.
Yeah.
And after Dime died and he started going out more, he had a little more of that than he had used to have before Dime got killed. But yeah, man, people latch onto that and they think just because they've been to the house for a few parties or they ran into him somewhere and they talked to him for an hour or that they were just like, it's like they almost had a backstage pass to the rest of their lives or something.
Yeah.
And it could be scary. It could be scary at points.
No. And we all see how scary it was,
Exactly.
Yeah.
It ultimately ended where it did with Don, and that was just a crazed fan. We all got to remember that the word fan is short for fanatic,
Exactly.
and that's what some of these people are. They're fucking freaks, and they get off their meds and they start thinking shit like that dude was thinking.
Yeah. Well, man, that's really. I'm glad you said all that because It's really refreshing to have somebody that was in the inner circle, if I can use that term, explain it like that. Because there are, it's kind of like the Nirvana show at Trees. 20,000 people were there.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to say they had a part of them, and that's good in one way because it did make everyone feel like they were fans themselves.
That's what music does initially. That's the power of music.
Yeah.
It pulls people together from different parts of the world. It pulls people together that wouldn't normally speak to each other on a daily basis. It is one of those things that's unexplainable. But at the same time, there can be a harmful aspect to it as well. And that's part of it. That's the dark side, Yeah.
Well, while we're on the subject, I don't want to jump around. While we're on the subject, you brought up this new tour with Phil, Rex, Charlie, and Zach. How involved are you, or are you involved at all in any of this?
No, man. They have a more than competent crew, absolutely kick-ass crew, way more professional than we ever were, but that was a different era. So, they are badass. I can't say enough about them. Some of them I've known for decades, and a couple of them I haven't known that long, but they're just badass at what they do. And so I hats off to all those folks, too numerous to name at this point. But I am just at this point in my career and all of this, I get to sit back and watch, while these dudes go out there and kick ass and do what they love to do and pay a huge tribute to the brothers.
Yeah. How long did you know in advance that this was going to happen?
Been talking about it probably for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Something like that. It really started to take shape about 2 years ago on my end, which my end is just so that, you can look it up. It's public information, but I am part of the Vinnie Paul estate.
Okay.
So that is where I fit into the puzzle.
Mm-hmm. So by being part of the Vinnie Paul estate, do you have to approve of certain things or?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Things cross the desk and we go yay or nay.
Oh, right on, man. Yeah, I saw that you attended some of the rehearsals right before they did the shows in Mexico. What was that like seeing those songs performed?
It was, I came in the door, just like I posted on Facebook. I came in the door with my doubts. I had my doubts, but they were silenced. The production is off the hook. I personally think Phil is at peak performance. He's singing better than I've heard him sing in years. They're all in good shape. Rex is still doing his thing in good shape. And they couldn't have asked for two better people to fill those shoes. I know that they can't be filled, but to jump in and take up that responsibility, which is pretty heavy, they could not have picked two better people than Charlie and Zach.
Yeah. Well, I was like you, man. I went to I would go see the Terry Lee era when Phil came along. Like I've seen Pantera in the beginning. I've seen them at their peak. I've seen them in their lows. you know, and I had my doubts, but I've only seen it online, and it sounds amazing, you know.
It's great. It's great. I loved it. Walked
z-
out of there just dumbfounded.
yeah,
Seriously.
they're doing a great job. You mentioned on another interview that, you know, Zach wasn't always the first choice. He was always I want to say the obvious choice, but he wasn't
Yes.
always the first, that there was other guys that had been either considered or auditioned.
Mm-hmm. That there were no auditions. I put that out there.
Okay.
Not that I know of.
Mm-hmm.
But and there were just names, you know, tossed around, put in the hat, and I'm not gonna name names on
Yeah.
that one. You know, of course there were other people
Yeah.
suggested. Of course there were other people brought up, but Zach, he's the obvious choice. Him and Dime were like brothers. They were so close, and as one guy, I believe it was Mark Tremonti, who is an outstanding, one of my favorite guitar players, said that his name was tossed about, but that the reason he declined was that because there is a certain personality I think it takes to fill that position or try to convey those things on stage, and he didn't feel that he was the guy. And well, Zach, again, coming back to that obvious choice, he and Dime had very much alike personalities.
Yeah.
And so they really vibed together in that respect. And so, yeah, very obvious choice, perfect choice. People keep bitching about, it doesn't sound like Dime. Of course it doesn't sound like Dime. It's Zach.
Yeah.
You know, it just, that blows my mind that people are that picky, but whatever.
You know,
It's supposed to be
what I've heard online, he's being very true to it, but it doesn't even sound like Zach. Like, you know.
Exactly. Listen to how much it isn't Zach. Listen to, instead of picking it apart, listen to the song, man. Don't just listen to Zach. Okay.
Yeah. Dude, I had my doubts, and I'll be honest with you. The minute, of course, I'm just a fan, you know, like everyone else. I have no dog in the fight. But once Grady came on board, you know, I thought, well, man, you know, as a tech myself, you know, you're close to your guy, and they came no closer than Grady and Dime. You know, when he came on board, I thought, well, who am I to say that it's, you know, all these young kids that never got to see Pantera are going to hear these songs, you know? So
who's
huh?
Who's Grady? I'm just joking. I'm just messing.
He's the guy that's been saying he's Dime's tech.
Nah, dude, that of course absolutely led to it lent some authenticity to it. It lent some of that family vibe. Sonny Satterfield's out there doing lights for it. And we've got one of our old pyro guys, not our pyro guy personally, but he was out with White Zombie when they were out with Pantera, Tom Brewer. And so he toured with Pantera. Eddie Matt toured with Pantera from the side of or Diamond Vinny. He's been around for years. He lives in New Orleans. He's part of that whole New Orleans scene. He's done Evanescence, Paramore, Drowning Pool, which is from here, as you well know.
Yeah.
Bunches at Black Label Society. So it all ties together.
Is Guy Sykes on this tour?
No, he's not. He's still doing Volbeat, and they have really kick-ass tour manager named Meg McRae, who we all love, and she's a badass.
Yeah. I met Meg years ago when she was with Bon Jovi.
Exactly. She's been at the top of the business, and, you know, she's done it all.
Right on, man. Well, are you excited for this tour that was just announced?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I got to go to the first show in Mexico, so I got to go see that madness. 60,000 people. Not bad for a first show back after 20 plus years for these guys, you know, of this size.
Plus those South American fans, dude.
Yeah, dude, they're insane. You and I both know how insane that is. Yeah, it was great. And so I got to witness that first show. And then, yeah, I'm excited about the U.S. tour. Got to say, I'm not, I probably will not attend the Dallas show just because it's going to be so big and so too many people. It's going to be everybody crying. I didn't get on the guest list.
Is it going to be one of those classic Pantera guest lists?
I doubt it because it's not their show. It's Metallica's show. So it's not their call to if they had a 900 person guest list like they used to do here,
oh man,
Metallica would shit a brick. Lars would go, "Where's all our fucking money going? So, we're just going to break even."
Yeah.
So, too many comps. But, I don't go to Dallas shows. I don't go to hometown shows anymore just because it's such a hassle. I would rather get in my car and drive to whatever the next state is or somewhere way far away from Dallas to go see one of these U.S. shows. I just don't. I have no desire to run into all the people that were shit canning this from the very start either.
I know, right?
Because I got words for them.
To just back up a minute, you said something earlier to me about Mark Tremonti. A lot of people don't realize how good a guitar player Mark is.
That dude is an absolute musician beast. He is so, and I'm not talking about shredding. I'm talking about music. I'm talking about just so musical and tasty. He's kind of got that Eddie Van Halen thing where, yeah, he can shred, but listen to these songs, man. If you haven't sat and listened to his solo album or all this Alter Bridge stuff,
and it's about the tone with him too.
Oh my God. He is so good. I love that. And he can sing his ass off. Not a lot of people get into that part of it. That dude's got a killer voice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, I love that cat. If you're listening, Mark, I love you.
I hope he is.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, man, I appreciate you talking about the Pantera stuff. We're going to move on for a minute. I recently interviewed a guy named Ramiro Noriega who plays in Back in Black. He also plays in Stripwired, which you had something to do with. What did you think about those guys, man, with the original music they were making?
Dude, I like it. I think Mike Mraz, the guitar player, approached me to come help them record and mix their first away from the tribute band thing. Album, and I said, of course, I'd love to. Back in Black was the first album I ever bought with my own money. I love it. I've listened to it a gazillion times, worn out many copies of it, and we went to a local studio here in Dallas called Valve, which is owned by a good friend of mine named Casey Diorio.
I know Casey very well.
Yeah, and man, Casey really did his homework. And Casey has, if for people that don't know or are not in the know about recording studios, he has a really unique space in that it is all, I don't want to call it vintage gear. It's more along the lines of modern vintage, if you want to call it that. Mm-hmm. It's very nice, good, modern made gear, but made in the vein of the things that we all know and love about music, that from music that we grew up with in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and stuff like that, where they were still using tape. They were still using tube gear. They were still using things that they hadn't quite turned the corner into digital yet, but he is digital. It is modern. It's not like this really old stuff studio. He's got killer mics, and he did his homework. And so he ended up doing all the recording for them for that album, for the Stripwired album. And then I mixed it here at my little place in Denton, in Corinth, actually, is where I live. And, just loved it. I love those guys. They're fun to work with. They're easy to work with. And they're pulling from something that's very near and dear to my heart, which is that album, you know, and that era of music. And it's just there's just something so pure about that 3-chord, 4-chord rock,
Well, man, I got to say, I love the Stripwired stuff. It's
cool.
You know what? They're wearing it on their sleeves and they're not ashamed of it. It's so
No.
good. So
Have you
good.
seen the documentary?
I I just watched the documentary last week and I'm talking to Mike on Wednesday.
Ah, cool. Tell him I said, hey, it's been a while since I talked to him.
Will do, man. Are there any new projects you're working on right now?
Right now, not a whole lot. Like just this past summer, I mixed a project for an old friend of mine named Kevin Goocher, who's from here. He used to be in the band Omen. He's now he did an album with some cats out in L.A. And oddly enough, Simon Wright was the drummer on it, and he it was called Of Gods and Monsters,
yeah.
and it's called I can't remember the name of the album, but it's called, the band is Of Gods and Monsters, and I mixed that. And then right before that, I mixed the newest Pissing Razors album, some more Music Family from El Paso, called Eulogy Death March. And then I am working with a band from Oklahoma City, Norman, Oklahoma to be exact, and they're called Fist of Five. And just mixed a single for them about 6 months ago, and they just released that this January. And probably going to go back in the studio with them. We went up to record that single and about 5 other songs. We went up to Sylvia Massey's place in Oregon.
Right on,
and super, super cool to work with her. I just absolutely love her. So,
well, I'll keep an eye out for all of that stuff. Kevin's an old friend of mine, man. Back from, I'll go a little further, Corrupted Innocence.
Wow. Wait, that's back before my time in the DFW music scene.
Yeah, Kevin's always, he and I go way back. I run into him almost every year at NAMM. So
Yep. So he's bouncing around. He was in Nashville for a minute. He was in LA for a minute, and then he was in Nashville. I don't know where he is now, but yeah, we worked on that album, mixing that for a few months and passing files back and forth and got that done. And so, yeah, man, it's always good to work with old friends. You know?
And he's good people, Kevin.
Yeah.
Well, man, did you ever think over 30 years ago when you were mixing that blues band, you'd be here and you would have experienced everything you experienced?
I will tell you this, and the honest, straight up, easy answer is no. The complicated answer is I work hard. I have a really good work ethic. I don't half-ass stuff when it comes to music. I like to think I don't. And so and I'm not tooting my own here, but it doesn't surprise me I am where I'm at. But there are still times when I go, how did I get here? You know, so I don't. It's such an odd and surreal thing. I still do live sound, although it's not my preferred thing. I still do it just to kind of keep the lights on and because the recording industry is so in flux right now as to what does it want to be. It will never go back to the old days, thank God. But where record labels are running and ruining everything. But I was doing a show the other day. I work over at what used to be Bomb Factory. Now it's just called Factory. And they have that little room next door, which used to be Canton Hall. Now it's called the Studio. And I was just doing a show at Factory, and they were like, hey, man, since you're not doing anything, you know, I some days you work some of these big national artists, international artists that come through there, and they're all self-contained, and you literally hand them 4 lines, the left, right, sub, and fill of the PA, and that's your whole day. And so they were like, hey, man, can you the artist over here at Canton or at Studio needs somebody to run her by the airport. Some of her stuff just came in, her merch. Can you run her over there real quick to pick this stuff up? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And so I get to talking to her, and her name is Tessa Violet, and she's obviously like big online, and she has this internet presence. I'd never heard of her, watched some of her show. She was great. And, you know, I got to know her and one of her crew people really, over the course of being in a car with her for an hour, running to the airport and back to get her stuff. And I was after that, I was texting the wife and she was like, where were you or whatever? She was asking, why weren't you at the venue? And I said, yeah, I had to run the artist over to the thing. And this is her, look her up on her profile and thing and on Facebook and Instagram and all that. And she goes, and my wife just replied, you have such a weird life. And it's true. I have this bizarre life where it's like, I kind of got a foot in that world and I got a foot in my home, which is, 5 cats, a dog, a teenager, and a wife.
It's weird, isn't it, man?
It is a weird limbo thing. And especially when you remove the alcohol, the drugs, the partying, all of the shit that we used to do when we were younger and now have wised up, hopefully, gotten a little wisdom under our sleeves. It turns into this, living in suburbia and yeah, it's just this weird having a foot in two different worlds. And, I work with famous people all the time. I'm up close and personal with them. Most of them are really great. And then I come home and I got this home life that is just so not that. And it is
You're
bizarre.
Taking out the trash, doing the dishes.
Yeah. I scoop poop, I do what I got to do. I'm not some famous dude with a butler. That's silly.
Man, have you ever thought about writing a book?
I have people ask me that all the time. You're the umpteenth person that's asked me that. And I don't, again, like going back to what I just said, I don't half-ass things. And if I were to write a book, it would be all out, everything. I would be honest. But the problem is that there are some secrets are meant to be kept, I think. And I wouldn't want to put a negative light on anyone. And I think that there's already been several books and they were great works of fiction. I'll give them that about the Pantera experience because I don't care for any of that stuff because it wasn't truthful. But if I were to write a book, it would be very truthful and I wouldn't want to get anybody in trouble. I wouldn't want to cast a negative light on any of my family members, people that I consider my family. Yeah. So the answer to that right now is no. I really don't see myself writing a book. I don't care to. There's just some of that stuff that just doesn't need to see the light of day, I don't think. And not that there's a whole bunch of dirt. It's just that it would only be my perspective, Yeah. It would from my perspective. And two of the folks aren't here or several folks aren't here anymore to join in and be a part of it and keep the record straight. And I don't think that it's not for me.
Yeah.
Do I write? Do I like to write? Yes, but not about that. I think there's a whole lot of that just needs to be let it go, man.
Right on. Well, Sterling, I appreciate you taking the time to do this. I used to be in a band called Mudflap with Christian Harvey and Beetle Bailey.
Mm-hmm. I know Michael and I know Christian.
And we crossed paths briefly back then. And then I remember Jeff Pierce introducing me to you at the Majestic Theater.
Yeah, man.
Almost like we had known each other forever. But I remember, I have to say this, you're very good at making me feel like you remembered me.
Nah, dude, I remember. It's part of that. Believe me, dude, there are albums that I've done that I've worked on that I'm like, I worked on that? And I'd have to play the music and go, oh, yeah, I remember now.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where when I see a face, when I see person's mannerisms, when I see that vibe and I go, yes, I do remember you, and because you and I both know how many people we meet sometimes in 1 week span.
Oh yeah.
And how many people we shake hands with and talk to and yeah, sure. Let's get together, blah, blah, blah. And some of it never comes to pass, or you work with somebody only once and it just kind of gets lost back in the back of your mind. But yeah, man, I remember you well. I remember, God, Christian. I talked to Christian just a couple of months ago. He's opening a studio or putting some kind of thing together.
Yeah. So, I recorded something with him as a test probably over a year ago when he started. And Christian's another one of those guys that when he jumps into something, it's just all in.
Full bore. There's only that, to me, I think about doing a lot of things like you're talking about, like writing a book. I think about things like that, writing a screenplay, writing a book, getting more involved in making music myself. But I don't have the time, I don't think. The way my time is managed now, I don't think it would work. Yeah. Whereas, because when I want to do something, yes, I have to do it 100%, or else why am I bothering? So yeah, same thing.
Right on, man. Well, I've got a couple more questions for you. They'll be real easy answers. The first one, Dio or Ozzy?
Ozzy.
Exactly. I didn't want to have to hang up on you, man. Okay.
Only because I've done a shit ton of Ozfests and I got to tour with the original Black Sabbath, and I just absolutely love that man.
Oh man.
So Ozzy all the way.
Right on, man.
I never met Dio. I heard he was nice, but I never met him.
I met Dio at the Canyon Club. Is that what it was inside the Bronco Bowl? I met him after Bronco a show Bowl. There. One of his shows there years ago.
Nice.
But, dude, my podcast is called Is Breakfast Included? If it was Sterling, what would you have?
French toast.
My man. Well, buddy, thank you for your time. I know we tried this a few times, and I know you're busy, but thank you for taking the time to do this today, man. I appreciate it.
Anytime, my brother.
All right. It was good talking to you, man.
Good talking to you, man.
All right. Bye. Right on, Sterling Winfield. Man, what a great guy, right? Amazing career so far. Like, he's still doing it. And it's amazing. Like, you fall into something that quickly and you find a family and you become part of an already established family, and they welcome you in, and then you just carry on to his involvement today. Man, he's such a great guy. It was a really pleasure talking to him. All right, guys. Again, thank you for listening. 100 episodes. We are so proud of ourselves. I hope you're proud of us too. Again, follow the Instagram, the Facebook, the Twitter, all that good stuff. Like, subscribe, share, comment. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next week.